Science you can try at home. Today, guys, we're going to look at a particular word in science called density. Now, you may have heard this word used in a few different ways. Sometimes we talk about the density of population, how many people per square kilometre live in a place, for example. Well, in science, density has a similar kind of meaning. So you can have two objects of roughly the same size, say a pink object and a green object, and the density talks about how much matter, how much stuff is inside each of these. So a dense object, say this pink one is more dense than the green one, will have a lot of stuff in it. Now, it could be atoms or molecules, however you like to feel about it. Talk about it, I should say. So that object is very dense. It has a lot more material in it. It'll weigh more than something that's the same size that has less density. It's got less material. It's still made of something. There's just not as many molecules packed into that same something. So this is more dense than this that's around about the same size. Let's have a look at a real life example. Here we have two things. We've got a ping pong ball, which you've all seen before, and a golf ball. Now I can tell you straight away, and you'll have experienced these two things, this is a lot heavier. They're around about the same size. In this case, the golf ball is slightly bigger, but it's a lot heavier. Let's have a look what it says on the scales about this. So let's see if we can even get a measurement for this one. Currently, you might be able to see down there. Just angle it down a little bit. It says 0. Put a ping pong ball on there, and it's still reading 0. It's so light, in fact, that this poor old scale can hardly tell. Let's try the more dense golf ball. Now, camera's struggling to focus there a little bit, but 44 grams. There's a lot more stuff inside this golf ball than there is in here. Now you can feel it and you can sort of sense it yourself. And if you've ever popped a ping pong ball, you'll know that there's pretty much nothing in it except air. Later on, we're going to have a look at what's inside one of these. Here's another example of the same sort of thing. If I had two things, in this case represented by these tiny plates here, in fact these are exactly the same size, they contain the same amount of stuff. Now if I only had some of these delicious tiny Easter eggs in there, or maybe one less, you can see there's quite a bit of space around them. They're not very densely packed. They're able to wiggle around inside there, no trouble at all. They're not very dense, and we'll spread them out so it looks more realistic. Excuse me touching, I have cleaned my hands. If the similar sort of object, size object, was made of different stuff and had more of these in it, that is what we call more dense. Now, also much more attractive proposition. If you're going to a party, take that plate, not that plate. Now, this is what density looks like. There's more stuff packed into this one than there is in this one. Think about if this was a gas, for example. Gas is not very dense at all. It's usually lighter than any liquids or anything like that. So a gas would have even fewer molecules in it for the same size. So if I was imagining, for example, the inside of my ping pong ball, it would be more like this, with only a few molecules in it. The gas is very, very light compared to what's inside a golf ball. A golf ball is packed solid with stuff. A ping pong ball hardly has anything in it except a little bit of air. So you can see that straight away this is going to weigh a lot less than this one. And that's all density is. It's how much matter is inside it. Unfortunately, this poor old ping pong ball is going to get lighter and lighter as I go along. Now, here's the bit you can do at home yourself. First of all, think about a glass of water. Well, in this case, it's half a glass. Inside here, there are two things actually. People will say, well, there's some water and the rest of it is empty. Well, not in reality. While we are in an atmosphere on a planet, like most of us are, what is actually in there is water up to that point, and above that is air. Now, water is a lot more dense than air. There's a lot more molecules packed into it. In fact, water is roughly 800 times more dense than the air that's above it. And the glass that it's in is even more dense than the water. A lot heavier than the water bead. So if I had a glass bead and put it in there, it would sink straight to the bottom. And we'll play with floating and sinking things later on. But I want you to get this idea of density. Now, here's the experiment part that you can do yourself. Can we show two different types of density in the same cup? So I've fished out some of this beautiful olive oil, a little bit of that. It doesn't have to be olive oil. And I've got some water, which I've already, you can't really see it there, but I've already pre-coloured it. I've put just a drop of food colouring in there just so that you can see what's going on a little bit more. So here we have two things that we think might have two different kinds of density. I'm going to put it in the oil, into the cup, nice, and try to make it so I don't spill too much of it. There we go, oil in the cup. Nice good amount there. And you can see it's quite viscous, it's thick, not runny like water. And so I wonder if that has more density than water. Well, we can find out. Let's see, by pouring this water in, the more dense material, whatever is more dense, will go to the bottom, and whatever is lighter, has less matter in it, will rise to the top. Let's see what happens. Very carefully putting this in. Now it is pouring straight in there. And in fact, immediately what you'll see is that they're separating straight away. It's gone quite bubbly. Turns out the oil has less density than the water. The water is very quickly settling down into the bottom. There's bubbles and a little bit of air mixed in there as well. But generally speaking, the water has settled down here and the oil has risen to the top of those two layers. How interesting. We'll let it settle for a bit and come back to it in a wee while, see if there's a more clear line between the two. In the meantime, I'll take some pictures, see what you think. What's inside? A golf ball. This one's been chewed up by Jax a bit, so it's not one that's going to be used again. Let's have a look. Excuse my messy bench. First of all, we're going to clamp it in with a vise, and then we're going to try cutting right through the middle there. Could be a bit of hard work, but we'll see how we go. So, super tough actually, these things. I've cut all around the outside. I reckon I'll give it a whack with a chisel, see if we can split it open that way. Ah, now would you look at that? It's like a very hard, solid plastic. It's not exactly what I expected. I thought it would be more of a rubbery kind of thing. In this case it's kind of a pink, almost flesh coloured, looks like salmon. Interestingly, even a half a golf ball will still bounce. And Jaxie's going to help me prove the point here. You ready, Jaxie boy? You watching? Excuse me? Excuse. Try the other half.